The street was alive with the hum of the city, people rushing past, horns blaring, lights flickering over cracked sidewalks. On one corner stood a dusty, old piano that no one had touched in weeks. Its keys were chipped, its sound slightly off, much like the people who passed it by. That's where a young, arrogant millionaire's son named Ethan Royce stopped one afternoon with his friends, laughing, showing off his wealth as cameras rolled for a vlog. And sitting nearby, under that same piano's shadow, was a homeless man named Marcellus. His clothes were torn, his beard rough, but his eyes held the quiet wisdom of someone who'd seen beauty and tragedy all at once. When Ethan mockingly tossed a challenge, "Play it and I'll give you a car," the world laughed. But no one knew what was about to happen when Marcellus lifted his trembling hands toward the keys. It started as a dare between spoiled friends. A bored group of rich young men looking for cheap entertainment on a slow afternoon. Ethan Royce, son of a billionaire real estate magnate, had grown up in a life so cushioned he'd never seen struggle except through tinted car windows. The piano sitting in the corner of that public square caught his attention, not because he loved music, but because he saw an opportunity to mock someone who had nothing. Marcellus sat nearby, silent, with an old duffel bag at his feet. He'd been living on the streets for months, his life reduced to begging for coins and sleeping under bridges. Ethan's friends gathered around, recording everything. "Hey, old man," Ethan shouted, tossing a few coins near Marcellus' feet. "You play piano." The crowd turned, curious. Marcellus raised his head slowly, his voice hoarse but calm. "A little," he said. Ethan smirked, sensing amusement. "Tell you what," he said, stepping closer, his designer shoes glinting under the city lights. "Play that thing right now. Make me believe you're worth something, and I'll give you a car. A real one. My BMW parked right there." His friends roared with laughter, already imagining the viral video. For a moment, Marcellus didn't respond. His fingers twitched slightly. His gaze moved toward the piano, that battered, forgotten relic, as if it was an old friend he hadn't spoken to in years. Then, without a word, he stood up, limping slightly, and made his way toward it. The laughter grew. Ethan folded his arms, still smirking. But as Marcellus placed his hands on the keys, the atmosphere changed. The first note echoed like a whisper in the chaos. It was soft, uncertain, trembling, but then came the next, and suddenly the noise of the city began to fade. The melody that poured out of that piano wasn't random. It was deliberate, passionate, aching with emotion. It was the sound of every heartbreak, every loss, every forgotten dream that still lived inside him. The music told his story, a story of brilliance once recognized and then lost to circumstance. People stopped walking. The laughter died. Ethan's smirk faltered. The man everyone had dismissed as a nobody had transformed before their eyes. His fingers danced across the keys with precision, his rhythm unbroken, his soul fully exposed through sound. He played Chopin, then jazz, then something entirely his own, a fusion of pain and hope. The crowd began to gather, phones now recording in awe rather than mockery. A child in the front whispered, "He's amazing," and her mother wiped a tear. Ethan's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances. Their laughter had turned to silence. Marcellus played for nearly 10 minutes straight, not missing a single beat. When he finished, there was no applause at first, only stunned quiet. Then came the sound of hands clapping, softly at first, then louder, then thunderous. Ethan stood frozen, the weight of embarrassment pressing down. His phone camera had captured everything, and suddenly, it wasn't a video mocking a homeless man, it was a story of humiliation for himself. Marcellus simply stood, gave a small nod, and started walking away. But then, a woman stepped forward. "Wait," she said softly. "Who are you?" Marcellus smiled faintly. "I used to be someone," he replied, "before life took the music away." Later that evening, the video had already begun spreading online. Homeless man stuns crowd with piano skills. Within hours, millions had seen it. Reporters started searching for the mysterious pianist. Ethan, realizing what he'd done, couldn't sleep. His father saw the video too and called him out for his arrogance. "You humiliated yourself," his father said coldly, and that man reminded the world what class really looks like. The next day, Ethan went back to the square. The piano was still there, but Marcellus wasn't. He searched the nearby shelters until he finally found him sitting on a bench by the river, quietly feeding pigeons. Ethan approached, guilt heavy on his face. "Sir, I came to apologize. I didn't know." Marcellus smiled faintly. "You didn't want to know," he said, "but maybe now you will." Through the conversation, Ethan learned the truth. Marcellus was once a celebrated pianist who had played in concert halls across the country. But tragedy struck when his wife and daughter died in a car accident, leaving him broken. He abandoned everything, his career, his fame, his will to live. The streets became his refuge, and the piano his only remaining voice. Ethan felt a shift inside him. He offered the car sincerely this time, but Marcellus refused. "I don't need a car," he said softly. "I need people to remember the music." That night, Ethan made a promise. He used his wealth and influence to launch a campaign to support street performers and struggling artists. He found Marcellus again, offering him a stage, not as charity, but as a chance to be heard again. Months later, Marcellus performed once more, this time in a grand theater. Under bright lights, with the same piano that had sat forgotten on the street, Ethan sat in the front row, humbled, knowing that the man he once mocked had taught him more about humanity than any privilege ever could. The night ended in a standing ovation, tears in many eyes, and a simple truth ringing through every heart: talent has no address, and dignity has no price.